The urban sleep crisis. As research now reveals, city residents get an average of 40 minutes less sleep per night than their rural counterparts. This sleep deficit represents critical recovery time that urban brains desperately need to process the overwhelming daily stimuli of city life. Sleep is perhaps the most fundamental yet overlooked factor in the urban mental health equation. While we often focus on the visible stressors of city life, the crowds, the noise, the pace, we rarely consider how these urban environments systematically undermine our most essential recovery mechanism. This sleep deficit accumulates night after night, creating a biological debt that cannot easily be repaid. Urban environments have engineered what sleep scientists call the perfect storm of sleep disruptors. Noise pollution from late-night traffic and emergency vehicles combines with light pollution from streetlights and digital billboards that suppresses melatonin production. Add to this the urban heat island effect, where concrete surfaces retain heat throughout the night, creating temperatures up to 7 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than surrounding rural areas. Far from the ideal cool sleeping environment our bodies evolved to expect. This urban sleep crisis has reached alarming proportions. Research from Stanford University's Sleep Medicine Division has documented that nearly 1 in 10 city residents consistently get less than 6 hours of sleep nightly, well below the recommended 7 to 9 hours. Dr. Rafael Pelayo, clinical professor at Stanford Sleep Medicine Center, notes that urban environments have created unprecedented challenges to human sleep architecture that our evolutionary biology simply hasn't adapted to overcome. Consider Sarah, a 32-year-old marketing professional in Chicago. Her typical day begins with a jarring alarm at 6 a.m. after just 5.5 hours of sleep, interrupted twice by emergency sirens. By afternoon, her ability to focus in meetings deteriorates. Small irritations, a colleague speaking too loudly, a delayed train, trigger disproportionate frustration. By evening, she's too mentally exhausted to exercise, but too wired from screen exposure to fall asleep easily, continuing the cycle. This pattern creates a vicious cycle of deteriorating mental health. Urban stressors disrupt sleep, and this poor sleep quality then lowers our threshold for stress the following day. With diminished cognitive resources, urban residents become more reactive to the very stressors that disrupted their sleep initially. Dr. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and sleep expert, describes this as a neurological trap where poor sleep and heightened stress perpetually reinforce each other. The neurological impact extends far beyond simple fatigue. Sleep disruption particularly affects the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for emotional regulation, impulse control, and rational decision-making. This region is essentially taken offline during sleep deprivation, leaving the more primitive emotional centers, like the amygdala, to dominate our responses. The evidence is striking. A landmark study at UC Berkeley used functional MRI to examine sleep-deprived urban residents' brains. They found a 60% amplification of reactivity in the amygdala and a corresponding decrease in prefrontal regulatory systems. The sleep-deprived urban brain becomes hypervigilant to potential threats while simultaneously losing its ability to contextually evaluate and regulate emotional responses. This neurological imbalance creates what researchers call emotional amplification, where minor irritations trigger disproportionately strong reactions. Urban residents experiencing chronic sleep disruption report feeling constantly on edge and emotionally raw in environments requiring complex social navigation. Long-term data reveals even more concerning patterns. A comprehensive 15-year study tracking sleep patterns across metropolitan areas found that urban residents experiencing chronic sleep deficits showed a 68% higher likelihood of developing clinical depression compared to those with healthy sleep patterns, even after controlling for other risk factors. Several mechanisms drive this connection. REM sleep plays a crucial role in processing emotional experiences and consolidating memories. Urban environments that fragment REM sleep through intermittent noise disruptions prevent this essential emotional processing. As Dr. E.T.I. Ben-Simon, a sleep researcher at UC Berkeley explains, without sufficient REM sleep, negative emotional experiences aren't properly integrated and diffused, leading to a progressive accumulation of psychological distress. The urban sleep crisis also impairs social cognition. Studies show that sleep-deprived individuals demonstrate reduced empathy, impaired face recognition, and diminished ability to interpret others' emotional states, all critical skills for navigating complex social landscapes. This creates another reinforcing cycle. Sleep deprivation increases social strain, which further contributes to psychological distress. This sleep deficit is inequitably distributed. Residents of lower-income neighborhoods frequently experience the worst sleep conditions due to higher ambient noise, greater light pollution, inadequate sound insulation, higher population density, and often shift work schedules. A study found that residents of disadvantaged urban neighborhoods got an average of 46 minutes less sleep per night than those in affluent areas. Dr. Lauren Hale, professor of preventive medicine, explains, poor sleep functions as both a symptom and a cause of health disparities, creating a self-reinforcing cycle where disadvantaged populations face both greater exposure to sleep-disrupting conditions and fewer resources to mitigate those disruptions. Developing brains show particularly concerning patterns. Urban teenagers get an average of 6.5 hours of sleep per night, far below the 8 to 10 hours recommended for optimal brain development. This sleep deficit during critical developmental periods has been linked to impaired academic performance, increased risk-taking behaviors, and vulnerability to mood disorders that can persist into adulthood. The urban sleep crisis represents a hidden but substantial public health challenge. Chronic sleep disruption significantly exacerbates symptoms of anxiety and depression, creating a pervasive risk factor for urban mental health that often goes unrecognized. The